If the Bengals somehow sneak into the playoffs, there will be an outcry for Joe Burrow to have a case to win the NFL MVP. But in this video, I'll explain why the NFL has already settled that case, for better or worse. Hi again, Bengals fans. John Sheeran of A to Z Sports Cincinnati here, and the NFL MVP is down to either Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills or Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. Two AFC quarterbacks not named Joe Burrow. And for the record, before we say anything else, I think either quarterback is extremely deserving of this. I think with Josh Allen, the Bills weren't expected to be as good as they are after losing Stephon Diggs, and he's really carried that offense on his back, and their defense hasn't been particularly good, and they're the only team to beat the Kansas City Chiefs this year, and he played phenomenally in that game. He's been dominant all season, either running or throwing the ball. He's definitely deserving of winning that for the first time. There's also a factor of the narrative at play here. The Bills and Chiefs have been going at it for years now. Mahomes has typically always come out on top, but this year, Allen has outplayed him, and again, he beat him, and that's a great story for the NFL to build its season around. And if they decide to give it to Jackson for the second year in a row and the third time in his career, I'm not going to have a huge problem with it because this is definitely his best statistical year. Yes, I know Derrick Henry exists. I know he's provided a ton of value on his own, but still, Jackson has been phenomenal, and the Ravens are about to win the AFC North for the second year in a row, and we all know how tough that is to do. And there's really one underlying reason why Allen and Jackson are in consideration for the award and Burrow's being left out in the cold, and it's because the NFL defines value as turning mediocrity into great rather than poor into mediocrity. Now, everyone's familiar with the recent history of the award. For like the last 11 years, it's gone to the quarterback of one of the very best teams in the NFL. More times than not, it's gone to the quarterback of the one seed of either conference, and typically the guy with the better stats. And it doesn't matter how good or bad that team is, regardless of the quarterback. If the team does well and the quarterback is playing well, then that quarterback is always going to be a front runner for the MVP. And this is important for the NFL because in order for the MVP to mean something, the valuable has to translate into winning more times than not. And I think the best example showcasing this regarding Joe Burrow is comparing his MVP case to that of Jared Goff. Now, according to DraftKings, Goff is not a favorite to win the award at plus 3,500, even though the Lions are the one seed in the NFC. But you know where Burrow's odds are right now? Plus 8,000 on the same sportsbook. Not only would everyone agree that Joe Burrow has been better than Jared Goff this year, but everyone can clearly see that the Detroit Lions have a significantly better roster than that of the Cincinnati Bengals. And you could easily make the argument that the only reason why the Bengals have 7 wins as of this video is because of Joe Burrow. And without him, they would probably be at 2 or 3 wins at most. Whereas with the 12-3 Lions, Jared Goff has probably been worth about 2 to 3 wins this year. He's not been playing terrible by any means, but still, you're comparing like an average Lions team with an average quarterback instead of Jared Goff to a terrible Bengals team with an average quarterback instead of Joe Burrow. The absolute numerical value that Joe Burrow has provided in terms of elevating the Bengals win total is significant and on par, if not greater, than any NFL MVP candidate this year. But it doesn't matter because the Bengals aren't winning, or more accurately, they just haven't won enough. And it's still not going to matter even if Burrow balls out against the Denver Broncos and Pittsburgh Steelers. Both the Indianapolis Colts and Miami Dolphins lose one game and the Bengals sneak into the playoffs because of their quarterback. Because even at that point, the Bengals are still going to be a 9-win team who snuck into the playoffs as a 7-seed wild card instead of being one of the best teams in the NFL. At the end of the day, they would still be closer to mediocre rather than great, and that is a big no-no for the NFL's biggest award. And I think so long as the NFL remains consistent with this, I don't think there's going to be that big of a deal, because if Joe Burrow has this exact season and the Bengals are 13-4 and they're the 2 seed in the AFC and he still doesn't win the MVP because, let's say in this alternate universe, Patrick Mahomes has a phenomenal season but the Chiefs are 9-8 and he wins the MVP, Bengals fans are obviously going to have a huge issue with that. But of course, that would never happen, obviously. The NFL would never let the Chiefs lose 8 games in the season. But when the winner does get announced, whether that is Allen or Jackson, and Burrow gets left out in the cold, the Bengals only have themselves to blame for not putting their quarterback in that conversation.